Episode 16 of the podcast, we're going to talk about a technique to help a dog be perfectly still for that small, precise detail work we need to do. And then we're also going to talk about food in training. This is the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, and a certified professional dog trainer. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. We've talked a lot about being comfortable, calm, and cooperative. So taking that to another level, when we want a dog to be truly motionless, even just for a little bit of time, so that we can get something very specific or very precise done, there's a really great tool that I use for that. Not a physical tool, not something you can hold in your hand, but a method, that what we can do is we can teach them how long we're going to take doing something. So while we do want our dogs to be calm and be still, when we're working on comfortable, calm, cooperative, really we don't need the dog to be statue still. We're allowing loose body language. We're allowing them to just a little bit and be comfortable. Most of the time we can work around that. But I think that a lot of dogs, even when they're good with that, have an attention span that has some trouble with being truly still. So if we're trying to get them to be really, really, really still, what we can do is we can make sure that we're having amount of time that means continue what you are doing. Brock, good job. Sorry about that. Get over here. Got a dog over here staring at stuff. Yep, dog people, right? So I'm a fidgeter. And I understand where the dogs are coming from. If I have to stay very, very still for a long time, I start slouching, I start, fidgeting around, readjusting, I get uncomfortable. But if someone was, say, trimming my hair and they need me to be truly motionless for part of it, not just don't wiggle around a lot, but truly motionless, they can tell me about that and I can do that in a short burst. Even though I'm kind of a fidgety little kid. So by teaching a countdown, what we're doing is we're telling the dog how much longer we're going to be doing something. That's kind of cool. That's an interesting piece of information. It's not about telling the dog how long they have to do something. It's more about, okay, this is what I'm doing to you or with you and how long I'm going to take. And it's a burst of stillness that we can get some real true stillness and some real precise work, right? So my countdown is always the same. I use it to define an amount of time. And I want you to think about the way that we use countdowns, because sometimes countdowns are like when they're launching something into space, they do a countdown, and that's to get all of the departments, everyone timed together for launching that thing into space. Usually that's the 10, 9, 8, 7, right? That's the kind of countdown that they use for that. Another reason why we would use countdowns, if you are lifting a large object or a heavy object with another person, we often sync up our efforts. Like, okay, we're going to do 3, 2, 1, lift. You ready? 3, 2, 1, lift, and we're all trying to work together to sync up our efforts. And that's what this is. This little tool, this little technique is for dogs who already know how to be calm and cooperative, but what we're trying to build is the way for them to realize, okay, if I can just be super, super still, we're going to only need to do it this long. Okay, so it's a really good technique, and I will tell you how to do it, but first, I want you to know that we're going to give it a try at the end of the podcast. So if while we're listening, if you're driving or something, just think about this for later. But if not, get a pen and paper or go find a pen and paper while we're still talking, because I'm going to have you play along. So what does it sound like when I do this? So if after a dog has already learned how to be pretty still, pretty cooperative with us, what I use the countdown for is while they're being still and I have them up close, let's use an eye for an example. And I need to scissor around an eye. They're already being still. I'm telling them, hey, nice, that's a good job. Look at you being still. And 3, 2, 1, stop. And I stop when I say stop, right? So they're getting used to like, and 3, 2, 1, stop. And 3, 2, 1, stop. It's not, and 3, 2. Like, that's not a tempo that you're going to be able to memorize. And 3, 2, 1, stop. Um, and when they get used to that being a routine, that being something we say, it makes clear sense to them how long that's going to take. I have timed it, and generally that takes me 3 seconds. Because I say the and, 3, 2, 1, stop. So, and 3, 2, 1, stop. Generally 3 seconds. You might not think that's very useful, but 3 seconds of truly still, precise work is often enough to get something started or finished. Sometimes just start to finish entirely. I mean, 3 seconds is a long time if all you need to do is nibble out a little tiny hair next to an eye, right? But to be still and safe, again, we're all about the safety, right? A dog who can be perfectly still and let you do something very precise, a millimeter away from disaster. So let me tell you how I start teaching that. Again, this is a higher level thing to do with a dog. It's not the dog who's already crazy. This is the dog who's trying, right? But still kind of a fidgety character, like I'm a fidgety character. So, so this is for the dog who understands how to be still and is willing and cooperative, but just doesn't have the focus, okay? So I start with something pleasant, something that the dog doesn't mind. So for many dogs, I start by petting their shoulder. So I'm petting their shoulder, and then I tell them, and 3, 2, 1, stop. And stop petting their shoulder. And they're like, okay. They're kind of indifferent. Doesn't really mean much to them. How interesting. So I do that a couple times. Maybe pet the side of their neck, pet them someplace else. But just to get the rhythm of, and 3, 2, 1, stop. And she ended what she was doing. The person ended what they were doing, right? Then I try it with a tool. Something they don't mind. Like a brush on their side, someplace that they don't mind. Practice it a little bit more, right? Brushing. Okay, I'm going to brush you. Aren't you a nice boy? And 3, 2, 1, stop. So what happens if the dog moves during the countdown? What I do is I get them calm and still again, and then start the countdown from the beginning. They're going to start figuring that out, right? Like, oh, hey, relax. So it might sound like, hey, we're brushing. And 3, 2, 1, oh, no, we need to calm down again. There we go. And we're brushing. And 3, 2, whoa. No, we need to calm down again. And we're brushing. And 3, 2, 1, stop. Right? Or it's a good time for you to reevaluate. Am I asking for this in a context that's just too difficult for this dog this day? Right? Maybe the dog isn't ready for that. Maybe it's just much too hard because the area we're working in is sore. But it's also a good time to reevaluate, and then try something easier. You might move on to something easier. Back to petting a shoulder. Remember this part? And 3, 2, 1, stop. Oh, right. 3, 2, 1, stop. Right? But when the countdown starts all over again, it's kind of like if you ask for a sit and they don't do it, and you're like, we're going to ask for it again. There's still a sit on the table. You got to do it, So that countdown, like I said, takes about 3 seconds. But 3 seconds is a lot of time when what you're doing is something tiny, something up close, something really delicate, something very precise. So I would like for you guys to play along at home. And I mentioned earlier, getting a pen and paper. If you're on the road or you're listening at work or something, just think about doing it later. But get a pen and paper. And I want you to just quickly, nothing fancy, just jot down a couple of 5-pointed stars. Most people know how to do a 5-pointed star. Just 5 lines, do a couple stars. Nothing fancy, just jot them down. Now that you have a couple of stars, what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you when you can start, give you a little bit of time, and then give you a countdown and a stop. And in that time, I want you to, as precisely as you can, trace those stars. And think about that as each little corner is a little tiny Yorkie eye. Those longer edges, that's trying to get a nice crisp trimmed line along a schnauzer ear or along the edge of a pad of a foot, right? If you go out of the lines, if you get a little bit off, you've just nicked your dog. Like, that's a vet bill. Right? Play along. Because I think if you're not a groomer, it might be a little abstract. Like, oh, why is this important? But to be truly still for just a few seconds so that you can be as accurate as possible. So I'm going to get you started. Again, don't worry about finishing because in this example, if it were a Yorkie eye or a Schnauzer ear and you weren't done, we would just calm them down again and ask for a different countdown. We'd move on to something else and circle back, right? You don't need to get all of it done in this little burst, but the things that you do get done, you can do as precisely as possible. So you've got your stars in front of you, and you might be thinking, these aren't the stars I would have made, but that's okay. But those little tiny points, right? Be thinking about, I don't want to see double lines. Nope, you need to just totally trace that out as precisely as you can. So, all right, go ahead and start. Nice, you're doing a good job. There you go. The kind of things we'd say to a dog, right? And 3, 2, 1, stop. Now, I want you to take a look at what you did. And even though you didn't finish, is it nice and precise, nice and crisp, right? Is that Yorkie's eye still okay? Is that Schnauzer's ear bleeding? Is that puppy nail trimmed too close? Think about that tiny little bits of precise stuff. Did you nicorette them or did you actually go and just make a nice crisp line in that hair? There are lots of places that we need to be that precise. So when I gave you the countdown, I also gave you a little bit of coaching, got you started, but still that was only a few seconds, right? So now you're left with something that's probably not finished. Circle back afterward, which is what I do for many dogs that are having a little bit of trouble. I don't worry about getting both Schnauzer ears done at the same time. I don't worry about getting both Yorkie eyes done at the same time, or I don't worry about all of that all at once if a dog needs extra help being as still as possible. And then the rest can be as casual as we usually allow, right? Like, okay, back to brushing or something, going on to something that's not quite as rigorous. But I want you to think about using it as just another tool in your toolbox, a technique that you can add once a dog is calm, comfortable, cooperative, they're understanding the grooming process. It may be that this is a particular sensitive thing that you're going to be doing with a dog who already understands how to be cooperative with us and allow us to do things. And I use this tool all the time. I love doing this. But keep in mind, it's said the same way every time. So it's not like a 3, 2, 1, stop. 3, 2, 1, nope. And 3, 2, 1, stop. It's very businesslike, right? We're not trying to trick them. We want them to get it right. We want to sync our efforts together. It is always, always the same. All right. In the next part, we're going to talk about food in training. If you're enjoying my podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. I want to talk to you guys today about food in training because I find that a lot of modern dog training uses food as the sole reward, right? It relies very, very heavily on food. I'm fine with that in most contexts while they're learning, but I want to help people understand that that's not necessarily something that can be used in a grooming setting. So if you are using food to train and to teach some husbandry behaviors, to be able to teach dogs to be having people care for them, giving them haircuts, giving them medical attention, we need to also make sure that they are able to learn how to do it without the food. So if you're using food, you're going to need to fade it. If you don't want to waste time with having to fade it, you can try doing it without use of food because positive reinforcement, something added that increases behavior, increases the target behavior, is positive reinforcement. And what that means is that something was added, which could be a toy or petting, right? Like it could just be praise, like, oh, who's a good boy, The reason why food isn't necessarily a great choice is because a grooming setting is quite unique. In a veterinary setting, they are in an exam room, often with no other animals around, until they get put back into the treatment room. In a treatment room, they might see other animals in cages. But in a grooming room, they are very, very, very likely to be around other dogs in cages or other dogs being walked through the room. And we don't know as groomers if these dogs have an issue with food. So having one dog on a table getting food, that dog may be fine with it. But another dog in a crate may suddenly start getting really kind of anxious and growly with other dogs because food is around, right? It's not the same as other settings. We need to make sure that if we're using something in a training method, it's not making our lives more dangerous. So a dog that is anxious about food, or put the next dog up on a table that now perhaps to them still smells like food, even though we've cleaned it off, right? That dog could end up becoming really rigid, really tense, and a little bit aggressive with other dogs, or perhaps people. Right? It's not just about the dog on your table in that moment. It's not just about the dog that you are training. It's about every dog in the room. We also have to worry about allergies. So like a little bit of peanut butter might seem harmless, except that peanut allergies can be pretty extreme. It could be a person coming into the room and smelling peanut butter and having some sort of outbreak. So we have to think about a whole variety of things. And also, watching another dog get rewarded when you get up on the table and you don't get anything, I think that that's probably not a great message. So I did a whole podcast on food and training, and it's actually one of the podcasts that hasn't been listened to all that much. So that means it's kind of in the middle of the stack. Some people are starting with the podcast at the very beginning. Some people start at the most recent episodes and work back. But it's episode 6. It's a Thanksgiving episode talking about food and training and why it's not necessarily a great choice for grooming. Another reason why it's not a great choice for grooming, many dogs won't take food on a grooming table or in a grooming setting. And on the one hand, you might say, well, that means that they're stressed out. That might be very true. However, we still have a training thing to do. We still have to work with them. So if we are teaching them at home or teaching them in other contexts that, oh yeah, and this is a treat fest, and now there's some place where they won't take treats because they're a little bit stressed out, we kind of missed the mark. We need to help them understand, oh, okay, I can still do them here. I can still perform this action, or I can still allow someone to do this to me, or for me, or with me, or above me, or around me. But we don't have to rely on food. All right. I find it gets it gets used pretty heavily. So many places won't allow food because it can cause problems with all the other dogs in the room. It can really, really throw a wrench in the works. So I would love if people are interested in why food isn't necessarily a great idea. We can go back to episode 6 and I talk about food and training. In the meantime, we have lots of ways to tell a dog how well they're doing. And we don't have to rely on food. There are lots of ways to train. In fact, I use little breaks pretty frequently. Little petting, a little bit of squeaky talk, a little bit of toys. There are lots of other ways that we can use to tell a dog, hey, you just got rewarded for that. Right? We don't need to rely on food. So everybody, have a great week and stay curious. If you'd like to talk to me, you can find me through my grooming and training business, happycrittersdogtraining.com, my email, chrissy@happycritters.net, and through the Creating Great Grooming Dogs Facebook page. And we have these awesome devices in our pockets that allow us to do live video with each other. I can help you with the dog on your table. We can set up live lessons, and you may be surprised at how much we can get accomplished together via video. I'm also happy to come to you if you're near my area in southern New Hampshire. If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional Certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist Diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course, the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.